I'm with Benji Backer, everybody. Welcome to Walk-Ins. Welcome.
It's great to be here in person. We finally are doing this.
I'm so glad we're doing it in person. I was like...
This is the first time we've met. This is like the first 10 minutes we've met in our lives.
I know. I came in hot.
You did.
You
were dancing. We were talking about lawyers and Russia. So it was a very calm start here.
There was a lot of news that dropped that Benji and I had to catch up on. And as I came back from Dallas, so I have that like 3-hour drive, where you're kind of spinning out a little. Yeah,
you're a little bit. That's manic. why manic, but also like drives are, I feel like, the best part of my day every day. Like people are like, oh, self-driving cars. I'm like, but I like driving.
I love driving.
Like that's my favorite thing in the world. Don't take that away.
I love driving. I drove when I first started Phetasy, which was initially it started as a greeting card company and a t-shirt
company. A greeting card company.
Yeah, cards that say what the other cards are thinking. It was supposed to be like irreverent greeting cards. I still have it. I still have it all trademarked. It's just... And I still have greeting cards and all the ideas, but I was like 26. How old are you?
That's my age.
Your age, okay. So you're doing much better than I was at 26.
I don't know. Greeting card company sounds kind of fun.
It was really fun. And then it was like 2006. And I was like, well, I'm not going to wait for like the internet to come to me. So I'm just going to drive around America. And I was like, I'm a one-woman brand, and I'm taking myself on tour. I drove down to Florida, across to California, up to Washington State, back down to Tennessee. I mean, up to Chicago, all over. For like 6 months, I was living in a car and a tent, and it was so much fun, but I went bankrupt. Anyways.
But that sounds like
the short end of that story.
And it was all about the greeting cards?
I mean, I was doing a lot of drinking too on
the road trip.
No, it was ostensibly for business. It just was also
greeting cards and beers.
I was drinking. There's a reason I don't drink anymore. And it's not because of my greeting card company, bankruptcy, failed marriage, or any of those things. It still took like 10 more years before I quit.
Hey, you're there.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me about you.
I also did a road trip around the country. It was in an EV.
That's very environmental of you.
It was very environmental, although it really opened my eyes to the problems with EVs, which we can talk about.
Holy shit. I mean, I don't need to drive around the country to know that would be a problem. As a woman, it's so...
I needed to double check. And so I did drive it around the country.
It's so unsettling. Those vehicles are so unsettling to me as a woman. I'm like, so I'm just supposed to drive around until I can find a random place in a remote area like Joshua Tree or somewhere in the middle of the country to charge my car. And then I have to sit there in this remote place and wait for my car to charge. What could possibly go wrong?
You can't find a charger. That's the first problem.
Yeah.
That could go wrong.
Yep.
You could get murdered as well.
That's
the second backup. Yeah, but not finding the charger is like up there. We had to get towed only once on the trip to get to a charger.
I love like the ad for EVs is like
we only got towed once.
We only got towed once. Get an EV, you'll only get towed once.
And if you don't have AAA, you're screwed. I actually have a plug-in hybrid right now, which is a perfect combo because it gets 30 miles electric, but then you can drive it gas the rest of the time. So when I take long road trips, I don't need to worry about it. But when I'm in the city, which is most of my driving, I'm never using gas. And my apartment gives us free charging for some reason.
Oh, that's nice.
Where
are you based?
I'm living in Scottsdale.
Oh.
All the bachelorette parties.
Okay.
They're either here or there.
Or Nashville.
Right.
I think there are more in Nashville.
That's true.
A lot of woo girls.
And it's all cowgirl hats and cowgirl boots when there's nothing Western
I really
about it.
want to do a thing in Austin, and maybe Justin will film it for me. I want to do a thing where I just get a cowgirl hat and boots and just join in any of the bachelorette parties.
You know they'd let you.
And see how long I can go along with them before anyone notices that I don't belong.
I feel like they usually are like, oh, come along, because they're so drunk they don't care who's with them.
They wouldn't notice. I bet I could go hours with some before they would even realize that there was an interloper who didn't drink amongst them.
Well, there's so many non-alcoholic beverages, you could get away with that too.
That's true too.
In Scottsdale, the problem is the whole I've been going there since I was really little. I grew up in Wisconsin, but Just moved there 2 years ago. And like the Scottsdale is now known as the bachelorette place, but it used to be like this cool Western town. And now it's like all the shops are like the pink pretty boutique store. And the shirts will say like, I hate dudes, but I love my husband. Or something like that. And it's just like so cringy. They're like catering to this. And I'm like, I don't know how long this is going to last, this craze of bachelorette parties. But
it's been lasting.
I know.
It's
but
been going for
hasn't
a
been
long
like, maybe it's just because I'm around it now. But is it?
You're just old enough to notice it.
That's true. I wasn't old enough to get married before.
Well, and when I was your age, I was waiting tables, and I was in Newport, and there were bachelorette. It was like,
Really?
oh God, it's a bachelorette party. They've got the dick necklaces and like.
They're all wearing the
nothing
cringiest
about
outfits.
it ever appealed to me. When you wait tables for as long as I did, which is like 20 years, in different parts of America, that is like the cockroach. It's not going anywhere in America. It's like just a staple of our society is like and also ask any comedian, that's all you deal with for whatever reason. Bachelorette parties and bachelor parties, they all love going out and seeing comedy. And they're always the most drunkenly annoying people in the audience.
Yeah, it's like, especially with like TikTok and like Reels, there's all these places that are now like almost just for bachelorette parties and bachelor parties, because it'll be like, look at what the girls and I did at this bachelorette party. And it's just like, it's going, I feel like it's gotten worse and gone rampant because these restaurants have now turned into like, we're going to hire people who can tolerate the bachelorette parties. Cause that's pretty much all we do at this point.
Wow.
And in Scottsdale, you'll go out to dinner. It'll be like 7 bachelorette parties in the same dining room.
Oh God.
And
this is like my idea of hell.
Yeah. No, I've stopped going to those restaurants.
Like being in an Arizona city where you're literally in 100+ degree conditions, just surrounded by bachelorette parties.
You want to know what's funny about that though? The only time they ever come to Scottsdale is in the summer because it's cheaper. Because the rest of the year it's so like nice and people spend a ton of money to go there. And so you're right. It's like, it's only during the worst season that the bachelorette parties are there. So it's like another reason to flee the state. You're just like, I want to get out of here because you're going to have 110 degrees in bachelorette parties. And that's just not, but you guys get 110 degrees in bachelorette parties here.
Yeah,
so.
we do. But what do you make of the, hasn't there been a lot of talk and alarmism about Arizona in particular running out of water?
There has been, and
what's
before
your
I
take on
moved there, I didn't know much about it, but I've done a ton of research and talked to a lot of the water experts there, and I'm somewhat of a water expert myself now. But they have 120 years of water supply below the city.
Except the Saudis own it, right?
No.
Okay.
No, that was something else.
We sell a lot of our water to the Saudis,
No, they were taking it all for farmland.
From California or something? Or
well, Arizona, they allowed the Saudis, I think a couple years ago, bipartisan passed something to stop that. But they were allowing Saudis to buy up farmland, which was using the water. That was like they were using a pretty large chunk of the water supply. But there's 120 years of like a reservoir underneath the surface of Phoenix.
Okay.
And there's 5 rivers flowing into Phoenix. There's the Colorado and then 4 other smaller ones that if you didn't live in Arizona, you wouldn't know the name of. And so what I learned is that the cities that are the most screwed are Southern California because they don't have a natural water supply.
Yeah.
They get it almost all from the Colorado River.
Which is
drying up.
And contentious, right? I mean, hasn't Arizona and all of these other states been like, fuck you, California?
They are because California has an outsized, they get an outsized supply of it.
Right.
And so and it doesn't even flow into California.
Right.
So it doesn't make any sense. They're just like, yeah, this is ours. The Colorado River is now the California River, basically. Right. And Utah's screwed the most by that. Colorado's screwed the most, and Las Vegas is screwed the most. Phoenix is screwed, but they also have extra water elsewhere, whereas these other places don't. And so, like, from what I understand, Vegas is like next to go if there's a water crisis shortage. But it's also very solvable. Like, there's this very direct line of water that could be desalinated fairly low cost in Mexico that they could do like a water pipeline for, but no one wants to pony up the money. And it's just at some point when the water supply goes so low, someone will pony up the money to do it.
Right.
But it just hasn't hit that breaking point yet. I just don't think it's that big of a deal. I think what the bigger deal is the temperatures are rising. Like Arizona has had, I think, 90 straight days of 100 plus degrees.
That was us in Texas, in Austin last summer.
90 plus?
I think so, yeah.
Holy crap.
It was the summer I moved here. And I was
that's
like,
worse because you guys have
made a huge
humidity.
mistake. Yeah.
You guys have humidity.
No, it was like, it felt like 116 something. It was crazy.
You ever been to a steam room?
Yeah.
Was that what it was like?
Yeah.
Because we have like a sauna. We're like a sauna.
I had just moved here and I was like, I've made a huge mistake gif. It really was like, what did I do to my life? And everyone kept being like, no, it's hot.
Wait
it's
it
usually
out.
not that bad. And I was like, I don't know, man.
This is all I know.
Yeah.
But people are worried about that because the energy grid is like, it's obviously growing so fast right now because of the population growth in most places, but like data and AI centers take up so much data or so much energy. And like, for example, when you search a picture on Google with AI or ChatGPT or whatever, it takes 10 to 15 times the same amount of energy as searching just a normal picture. And so you're using so much more energy. And they're building a lot of those data centers in Arizona. Plus, in the summer, you have all that demand for air conditioning and, just like sprinklers and all those things that need to go. And I'm more worried about the rising temperatures with the energy demand and how do we need to build another nuclear plant? Well, that's going to take 10 years. Are we going to open up new natural gas that we don't have? Do we reopen a coal plant? Do we, because with solar and wind aren't going to do it. Solar works, but just it'll never be a primary energy source because you have to replace one nuclear plant worth of energy, you have to plant 3 million solar panels. And that's assuming the solar panels work 100% of the time.
Right.
So think about how much space 3 million solar panels takes up. So you can put solar panels out there and it will help. And you can put it on people's roofs and kind of consolidate space.
Here.
Yeah. But it's still not going to work when the sun isn't shining.
Right.
And when it's cloudy. And that's the big problem.
I know that last year when the grid here was holding up, they were attributing it to all of the solar that has been put in Texas because isn't it one of the fastest growing?
Texas is number one in wind and solar energy in the United States, which is actually crazy. People would never know that. But it's funny because the left blamed fossil fuels for the power outages in Texas during that cold snap, and the right blamed wind and solar.
Oh, that's funny.
And the reality was everything kind of failed.
Right.
Because it was just not ready for that scenario. The thing that didn't shut down was the nuclear. The nuclear was the thing that was the most constant. The solar and wind are not really ready for extreme cold temperatures, but also natural gas. I mean, they have pipes and those pipes can break and, the system was not retrofitted for it. Like I grew up in Wisconsin, the systems are completely retrofitted for negative 30 degrees and they have all these different technologies to protect against that. Here it was not ready for that. And everyone used the other side's favorite energy source as the side to blame to make their political point when in reality, they all needed to improve, and that was part of the problem there.
Yeah, I joke about how I'm a single issue voter, and I just don't want. I'm like, get rid of these wind
Crazy
farms
people?
that are the wind farms that are off the coast of the East Coast, and you saw what happened in Nantucket, and I was like, I don't understand the logic of environmentalists who are like, storms are getting stronger than ever. Let's put a bunch of blades out in the ocean. That seems ridiculous to me. And like an ecological disaster. And my whole family and all the local fishermen that I was talking to when I was home, they were like, there are more dead whales washing up than ever before.
Right.
There are more dead dolphins. They don't want to admit that this is having some weird, guys who have been there 70 years are like, never have I seen so many dead marine life washing up since they started putting these things in. And Schellenberger's done a big documentary on this. And I just, all the stuff that's in those, what is it?
Materials, the different things that they're mining for.
Yeah, and also just the coolant and everything. Yeah, I'm like, why, what? Well, why are we doing this?
The problem is that every energy source has a massive trade-off.
Totally.
And so the problem with the offshore wind turbines, I actually am a fan of it if it's in a place that isn't frequently hit by storms, because I toured the one off the coast of Rhode Island. I actually like went out there on the boat like below it, and it's amazing how little of an impact they have from like a sound perspective and from a view perspective, because it's so far off the coast. The problem, like you're alluding to, is that they are in like a storm surge could really destroy them. When you put them in, it could hurt wildlife, but after that, it doesn't really affect wildlife at all. But like Europe is building them all over the coast, but they don't have hurricanes and these like massive storms, and so it's working. The West Coast could probably afford to have some of them. The problem is like
tsunami.
Yeah, until they get a tsunami. But that's the same thing with putting a nuclear plant anywhere. That's the same thing with putting anything anywhere. I mean, natural gas, an offshore oil rig, right? Like if you have an offshore oil rig in the path of a hurricane, same problem.
And we've had so many oil disasters. And like the Fukushima is another one that's like, Jesus, that was bad.
So I think the point is like there's trade-offs with all of it. So it's like, what's the smartest decision for that area? And that's the thing that I talk about in the book is like, we need to make decisions based on what makes sense for like those geographies, those cultures, those weather patterns. Like solar works so well in Arizona compared to Seattle, where I used to live. But yet Seattle's mandating solar and trying to replace hydropower, which if anyone knows anything about Seattle, it's that it rains a ton. There's a ton of water. That's why I moved, because I got sick of it. There shouldn't be putting hydropower in the middle of the desert, and they shouldn't be putting solar in the middle of a rainforest. Like we should be smart about this stuff. And that's the problem with this, is that we're not really thinking about it. We're just like, oh, this kind of sounds nice. Like 100% solar, that's kind of cool. Or like we're going to build offshore wind turbines in these places that no one wants them, and that it's in the direct path of a really bad weather pattern. But it sounds nice. Like we need to stop doing that. But our politicians don't think past the surface on this stuff.
Right. How did you get into this?
I was a wee boy, 10 years old. Voice hadn't changed. And I was knocking doors and making phone calls for political candidates.
Wow.
I watched John McCain and Barack Obama.
Like Alex P. Keaton.
Who's that?
Oh, no. I'm so old.
Am I dating myself?
I'm dating myself.
You can date yourself as a young person.
He can show you who Alex P. Keaton is.
Is this going to go up here?
You can't date yourself.
You can underdate. It's like showing that I don't know anything past 1997. Oh, that's definitely me. I don't know anything about him.
He was like this young conservative kid in Family Ties.
Family Ties.
Yeah.
I've heard of that. I have not watched it.
It was really funny and like quite ahead of its time.
That kid wearing a tie does look like me. There's a really, really funny picture of me wearing an American flag tie, giving a speech at this event, and I have the Bieber haircut and a really oversized suit coat, and I look like a little twerp. That's exactly, yeah. Although he looks a little better dressed than I did at the time. I don't think that one's real.
I don't think that's real.
No.
It might be, though. He could have been like Simpsons Predict the Future. But I basically was like that, except a lot uglier. And
I doubt it.
No, you should have seen me. I did glow up, unfortunately. But I really love politics, but I also loved being outdoors and hiking and skiing. My parents were big environmentalists. Were they
hippies?
No. So it's strange. They're entrepreneurs from Wisconsin, which is rare in itself because Wisconsin is not seen as like a tech hub or anything.
No, but there's a lot of industry in the Midwest.
There is, but it was a tech entrepreneur
Oh,
thing.
Interesting.
Yeah. And they actually ended up selling their company to like a Silicon Valley thing. So like very rare in that standpoint. They also were vegan and vegetarian growing up, but not for environmental reasons, because they didn't like the taste of meat and cheese.
Oh, okay.
Whereas I love meat and cheese.
They both didn't like it? Is that what, like, did they meet at an anti-meat and cheese party?
They're at the PETA conference, and they're like, oh, this is my guy. So my mom had always hated it. She always talked about how when she was a kid, she would, like, be forced to eat meat because that's what her parents made, and then she would like hold it in her mouth, and when they weren't looking, spit it out because she hated it that much.
Okay.
And so when she got old enough to be able to not eat meat, she made that decision. Then my dad got super sick from chicken and eggs one time, almost died from it. It was some really obscure disease thing, and so just like the association in his mind is bad.
Yeah.
So then my sisters, I have two older sisters, and I'm the third. they also don't eat meat either.
Oh, wow.
And so we lived in Wisconsin, the cheese state, and they don't eat that stuff.
Wow.
But I do, and I always have loved it. But it was really interesting because they were not vegan hippie environmentalists, but they were environmentalists, they were vegan, and they were like entrepreneurs and conservative. They were conservative.
Okay.
So, but very moderately, they weren't politically active. They didn't put signs in their yard or do anything like philanthropically for it or anything. So that was just like a really interesting family to grow up in because it showed me that like, oh, you can be all these things at once.
Yeah.
And it doesn't like contradict itself. So then when I was like going to school and starting to learn like, oh, environmentalism is associated with liberals, I was like, what? Like, that doesn't make any sense. My parents are moderately conservative and I'm conservative and I love the environment. What are you talking about?
Oh, wow.
And then I started going on these hikes and just like sit at the top of the mountain, as cliche as it sounds, and be like, how the heck did we get to a point where like this beautiful area that I'm in is associated with the Democratic Party? And are we really going to solve problems if it's only associated with one party? Are we really going to solve problems if it's only associated with their, what I think are pretty bad ideas? Why aren't conservatives at the table with their own approach? And so at my freshman year of college, I was in my fraternity.
Where'd you go to college?
University of Washington.
Okay.
So I went out to Washington from Wisconsin to the other UW because I wanted to be, I literally looked up the best business schools in the country. And then I went down the list to find the best business school in a place that you could hike and ski.
Oh, okay.
So University of Washington was the #1 best business school in a place you could hike and ski.
Okay.
There was no list for that specific thing. And so that's how I ended up there. But there it's one of 2 schools where you live in your fraternity your freshman year. And I was in a room full of 30 other freshman guys in my fraternity for a full year. We shared like a military bunk style, 15 bunk beds. And I started a nonprofit out of that 30-person bedroom.
Wow.
That now has turned into 30 full-time staff, 54,000 activists across the country, wrote this book. And it was all because of that frustration that I had about like the political divide. And then I was in Washington where I had a lot of great mentors and even my fraternity was very supportive. And here we are 7 years later.
I find frustration to be so motivating.
Oh yeah.
It's so I'm in an
I wish inspiration was more motivating than frustration, but it's just not. No, it's a fleeting feeling.
It is. It is.
You like go to one of those like meditations, which I try to do every once in a while. And you're just like, damn, I feel so good. Like, I'm so inspired. I'm so calm. And then 5 minutes later, you get a text and you're like,
yeah.
Shit.
You get it. You get stuck in traffic and you're like, ah!
You're right back to where you were before the meditation. But the traffic, you might want to solve it because you're frustrated.
Yeah.
Because the frustration actually does solve things.
Yeah, I do find it like I feel like that I'm in a particular, well, I'm kind of always frustrated.
You're like, actually, I'm really frustrated.
I'm always frustrated. But there's just something like inherently frustrating about the industry I'm into or industries that I'm in. And I think it's motivating. I used to find spite very motivating, but again, that's not really a long-term solution.
Well, it's not a long-term solution for totally different reasons.
I find spite to be like a very good thing to get you out of bed.
True.
It's a good match. It's not, it's again, it's like the other side of inspiration. It doesn't really last because maybe it could. You could be like revenge driven.
Sure.
But I've found in my experience, it's very good on those mornings where you're like, I don't want to push myself. I don't want to get
somebody
up.
else wrong.
And you're like, fuck you. Yeah. And then you can get into like,
yourself at that point.
Now I'm frustrated.
Word up.
Pull up the sleeves and let's get into work.
Well, so the thing that I've had a tough time balancing is that like I'm trying to bridge this political divide on climate and the environment because it used to be an issue that was nonpartisan,
right?
Like in the 80s and 90s and 2000s even. And so I have a lot of spite for people who have made that not the case anymore.
Who made it the case?
I think,
or not the case. Who made it the case that it was partisan?
Well, I would blame Al Gore.
It was Al Gore's fault.
It was Al Gore's fault. And so he doesn't like hearing that because he knows that I feel that way. And in fact, when I testified at Congress with Greta Thunberg in 2019, he took a picture of us and cropped it out, cropped me out of the picture and posted about like Greta testifies at Congress, and I was completely cut out of the picture. And like, if he truly cared about the problem, he'd be like, oh, this is cool. A right of center young person and a left of center young person are coming together with different messages, but the same end goal. We should be doing more of this. But he completely left me out on purpose. So did Hillary Clinton and a bunch of other people. And I'm not sure if it was intentional all at first, but he saw, oh my God, climate change is something I can win elections off of.
Yeah.
Oh, I can become a hero. Like, this can be my thing. And it's like if Donald Trump was trying to champion something that should be bipartisan, and everyone on the left is like, I don't want to be a part of that. Donald Trump supports it. It's the same thing with Al Gore. Sure. Or criminal justice reform. Remember when he passed that? And then suddenly, like, Van Jones, who helped him, was getting attacked like crazy.
And Kim Kardashian.
Yeah, just because they helped him. And like, Van Jones has never voted for Trump, will never vote for Trump, but he helped him out, and therefore he's evil.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with Al Gore. It's like, people were like, oh, you're for climate change? That means that you must, like, that climate change must be a liberal issue. And liberals hung on to that and were like, we're going to win on this thing. And then conservatives were like, I want to run the other way because I don't like Al Gore and I don't like his ideas.
I was just reading something I wrote about, I've been just trying to like process what happened to me.
Isn't that just like becoming an adult? That's just all we do? Is just process what happens.
I would hope so. But I was thinking, like, sometimes I kind of process through writing. So sometimes I don't really know how I feel or think about something until I'm writing it. And I was writing about, you know, when I was young, and I really thought George W. Bush was like evil. I was in 21 living in LA, and I was like, oh my God, this is the last election we're ever going to have. And I was like, you know, I knew what George W. stood for, but I could not tell you what Gore stood for other than the environment. I'm like, it's embarrassing, but I have to like go look up what his platform was. I just knew that he was like, one guy was oil and one guy was like for the oceans and for the environment. And I was like, that's my guy. I have no idea what he stood for.
So you voted for him.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure I did.
So you voted for him on the basis of the environment, which is exactly what he and so many other people wanted.
Yeah, it worked. It worked on me.
No, it worked on so many people.
Look, I see a Taco Bell ad and I want tacos. I'm easily influenced.
Taco Bell makes you want tacos?
Maybe not Taco
Bell. You live in Austin,
tacos.
Texas. That should be a crime.
No,
do they even have Taco Bells
I'm not
here?
saying it makes me want Taco Bell tacos. It just makes me want a taco.
So it's like a pack ad. Taco Bell is like doing pack ads on behalf of a taco. And is that what
yes.
Big Taco got you.
Big Taco got me.
Yeah, got it. So just like Al Gore's big environment got you as well.
No, I'm
learning a lot about you.
Yes, I'm very easily influenced.
Taco Bell's like, this is not what we intended. We did not want to run an ad with her to go to some other taco place.
By the way, I do want to know what it is about when you're pregnant that you crave Taco Bell. It is like the weirdest pregnancy
I can't help you with that
phenomenon. I thought it was just me, and then you start talking to pregnant women, and every pregnant woman I know has like a Taco Bell face. I'm like, what is the thing with pregnancy and Taco Bell?
I have to ask my vegan sister if she's craved Taco Bell. She's pregnant right now.
Amazing.
Is that what
that will
craved?
Prove my theory.
She's like, I'm actually eating meat
again. Tell me the truth.
How many?
Even if it was just fleeting and you pushed it away.
Yeah. How many Taco Bell tacos have you been sneaking over the last few
maybe
weeks?
She's having I just wanted the nachos.
But she'd have to have the vegan cheese on top. Have you ever had vegan cheese?
From Taco Bell?
Just in general.
Oh, I like cashew cheese a lot.
Yeah, but it's still not as good.
Sometimes it is.
Really?
There's a cashew queso at the Line, the hotel.
There's a queso.
It's a queso, and it's at this taco place that's at the Line. I can't remember right now, and it is so good.
Okay, I might actually have to check that out.
It's so good. Yeah, I don't mind cashew crema and all that stuff.
I do like that stuff, but I would prefer the real stuff.
But like hard cheeses that are vegan.
Oh, no.
I tried to do it.
Or the slices on like sandwiches and
they
stuff
don't melt.
I can't do. No, it's like a little rubber piece.
No, yeah.
It's like the tofu of cheese.
It feels wrong.
So yeah, so like, I don't even know where we were. We're
I'm
talking
Italian.
about before tacos and cashew cheese. Where were we?
You're talking about Al Gore. Oh. And how he duped me.
He would love, Al Gore would love the fact that our conversation turned from talking about him to cashew cheese and eating larvae instead of real meat, which is what he would love for us to do. And using, they're coming for you. you're the next Russian that they're coming for.
I'm a person of interest.
You are. You know some people who might know some people. But when we polled young people and anybody in America, their immediate thought process of environmentalism was like, oh, that's AOC, Bernie Sanders, Al Gore, Leonardo DiCaprio. Before the 2000s.
I have a whole stand-up routine by him.
Really?
No one acts more like the world is ending than Leonardo DiCaprio.
That's why he's just trying to get his nut.
Like just on yachts with bitches?
Right.
Like no one acts more like, fuck it, this is all gonna end.
There was a really funny tweet
him.
yesterday. It was Google turns 26 was like the thing.
I saw that. It had like a freaking
and
225,000 likes or something when I saw it. I'm like, this is a great joke.
The caption saying that Leonardo DiCaprio is choosing Bing now.
Such a good joke.
So good. But those people are not conservative in any way, right? So if that's your association with the issue, then you're automatically going to run the other way if you don't follow those people's ideologies.
Right.
Before the 2000s, it was Republicans who led all the environmental movement. I was just at the Richard Nixon Library speaking. He literally created the EPA, the National Ocean Association, the Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, Endangered Species Act. I could keep going too. There's like a huge list. He was a Republican president in kind of like the modern day. Like he would fit in with today's conservative movement. It's like the party switched or anything. Ronald Reagan also handled like that ozone problem that was going to kill us all.
He actually handled that shit.
He did.
Yeah.
And he didn't brag about it. That's just like what he wanted to do. And then George H.W. Bush, and even George W. Bush, who's seen as like this oil tycoon dude, did a ton to prioritize the environment. But we don't hear about that because all of our association goes to these polarizing figures. No one thinks of like Richard Nixon outside of Watergate or Reagan or the Bushes, especially today, as like very polarizing figures. But Al Gore is very polarizing. Donald Trump is very polarizing. And AOC is very polarizing. And so you put them on the opposite ends of the spectrum and everyone just falls in those camps.
Yeah. I'm excited to announce a new partnership we have with a company I love, Caliber, a strength training and nutrition coaching program that's completely personalized to you. So I've been using this now for about a month, and through their app, you get paired with a personal trainer, an actual person and not an AI bot, on a fitness program and nutrition plan completely customized to your goals, whether it's muscle building, weight loss, ditching the dad bod, or the mom bod in my case. For much less than it costs to work with a personal trainer at the gym. She's awesome. She's so responsive. That's the thing that I love about this. It's actually been life-changing for me. The app is incredible. It has videos that show you how to do all the workouts, and you can actually reach out to your coach if you have any questions and send them videos of you doing the workout so they can give you form feedback. Caliber takes a science-based approach, which leads to faster, more sustainable results. Even doing this for a month, I can see myself getting stronger. We've arranged a special deal for our Walk-Ins Welcome audience where you get $100 off the first 3 months. It's a really good rate, you guys, for what you're getting. And you get a 30-day money-back guarantee if you're not happy with the program. Go to caliberstrong.com/walk-ins or click the link below to get signed up. Are you worried you have an STD? Maybe you had a wild summer. We've all been there. Or maybe you haven't been there, in which case, get out there and have more sex. No, I'm just kidding. No one wants to think about STDs, but they are a reality if you're sexually active. Skip the doctor and buy your own STD and STI tests online with Quest. QuestHealth.com offers comprehensive STD panels and individual STI screenings with several collection methods. These are the same quality lab tests that doctors use, available to you, which is amazing, particularly for people on HMOs. Your results are delivered online quickly and discreetly. STD testing with Quest keeps the results off your insurance. You have the option to discuss them at no extra cost with an independent physician who may be able to prescribe treatment. Be responsible, guys, and prioritize your health with STD and STI testing on your terms. Use the link below to get 25% off your purchase. If you just click the link below, it's automatically included in the order. So just click the link in the description and take charge of your health and your information, and also be safe for your partner or partners. How do you break through it? Like, do you find that I feel like from my perspective, everything seems very much in disarray at the moment. And it seems like an opportunity to get people,
Totally.
young people in particular, who might be confused or feeling like, where do I fit into this paradigm? Because it's all the paradigms have been shifting and switching and whatever. I see it as like, everyone's like, oh, it's the collapse. Maybe it is, but it's also a good time for rebuilding and finding these kind of bipartisan pathways to solutions.
I feel like it's already starting to happen. It's such a good point, because like you see like the trend of like homesteading or like healthy eating. All these things have roots in like connecting to the world around us instead of like the digital world or social media or whatever. And it's going to take some time to undo like this world that we've created, which is so hyper manic. And it's also just like not.
Why did you look directly at me when you said that?
I gotta go.
I feel seen.
I'm also manic. It's okay. But it's going to take some undoing, but like this connection to the land is something that is happening, like in what we eat, what we use for resources. And that's what I think can bring us together, because like when you're hiking, no matter how you enjoy nature, you're a runner, you're a fisherman, you're a hiker, you're a skier, whatever you do to spend time outdoors, even just playing some sport, like there's nothing political inherently about that. And we all love those moments. We can all think about like when we had that breath of fresh air, or, we saw that amazing view and it took our breath away. Like that's something that is innately human in all of us. There's nothing different about that feeling.
Yeah.
And so we have it in different scenarios, but that's a uniquely human feeling that's pretty much felt by everyone at some point in their lives, poor, rich, middle class, whatever. That's what I think can bring us back together, because the environment now is seen as a political issue.
It's really a class issue, though.
Right. But it doesn't need to be. And that's,
I know, but it feels to me like the people, sorry to interrupt, the people who are pursuing the homesteading life are wealthy. It's all my tech friends who have money and are outside of Austin, and they're starting school pods, and they've got chickens, and you need land, and you don't
have a chicken? You don't have a chicken?
I live in
around?
like a basic bitch suburb. We probably chopped down half a forest to live where I live.
That's okay.
I know, your face fell. I've planted 4 trees, okay?
4?
You know how expensive trees are? They're not cheap. I spent my savings on my fucking trees, and now I'm a basic bitch.
No, that's very environmentalist.
Who cares about her trees?
Big amount of money, but I did plant 4 trees, so
like,
I did my part. No, you're right. It is.
No, but I'm middle class.
Right.
Like I can't go. I would love to live in a place that has more shade and more tree cover, but I also want to like. I feel like I'm more in touch with the middle class and a lot of people in media in general, just because I don't have a lot of money. I didn't come from money, and
you don't sell your soul for money.
I don't have Russian money or Chinese money. I have, I'm happy, I'm comfortable, but I think I live where actually the majority of Americans live. Yeah. And we do love like getting out and going in nature and appreciating all that. But it feels to me like the lower class really doesn't benefit from it at all.
Well, that's why, like, so my point in bringing like the homesteading and stuff up is that I feel like what's cool about it is that it is something that is trendy and something that people are trying to aspire to. And we have a society where the environmental solutions are seen as expensive right now. But like I said, it doesn't have to be that way. And so I think, which I'll get to in a second about why that is. But I think because people are aspiring to kind of be more connected with the world around them and the nature, like nature is free to see, whether that's at your local city park or whether that's at some beautiful national park in the Nordic, countries. Yeah. Like anything in between has a lot of beauty, and that's something that anyone can experience. The desire for people, the thing that like people's algorithms are feeding them this content of like homesteading and being closer to the land and stuff, which I hear all the time from people of all backgrounds. They want to, have healthier food, healthier lifestyle choices. Like that gives me hope that we can connect on that at some point.
Yeah.
Again. But you're right. Like EVs, expensive. Solar and wind are a huge upfront cost. Like my parents have rooftop solar on their Arizona house, and it has it broke even in terms of cost after 8 years.
Right.
And it's like a lot of people can't afford.
And then you have to like replace them.
Right.
I mean, how long
and
do
no
they
one
last?
can afford to pay up front to get a benefit in 8 years.
Right.
Like, so I totally understand that. But that's the environmentalists' fault. Environmentalists have made it impossible to be pro-environment and pro-yourself and pro-human at the same time. What I'm trying to explain to people through the book and through the work that I'm doing with ACC is that it doesn't have to be that way. Energy efficiency saves people money. Having more fuel efficient vehicles, not necessarily EVs, but hybrids or whatever, save people money at the gas pump. Having more diverse energy choices to give you the cheapest option when you're turning on your light, which you don't have to figure out, but the grid will, that is good for your pocketbooks too. And so those are the sorts of solutions where you don't have to spend more or be more or do something else with your life to protect the environment. And that's why the new environmental movement that I'm trying to create is one that is focused on humanity and the environment, not just the environment. Because if it's just about the environment, only rich people can afford it.
Only rich people can afford it. And it gets to be, as I make this joke on Dumpster all the time, like the environmentalist message is getting to the point where it's like, if you care about Earth, you'll kill yourself.
There are unironically people who say that. Thankfully, it's mostly in the UK. They're kind of crazy. They're just sad that they lost, every war they've been a part of, and they needed our support. So now they're just like, oh, we're gonna kill ourselves to save the planet.
They're like, oh, well, we lost all our colonies. I guess we should kill ourselves. And everyone's like, you should,
but
actually.
For the planet. But for the planet.
But for the planet.
Valiant effort. Good idea. Not really. So, but like, there are unironically people who are saying that, and then that turns people off even more. And Americans don't see the environment as this like hopeful, optimistic thing of like, we all have this land, we're sharing it, we need to take care of it, we're going to use resources, but we need to be smart about how we use them. No one's thinking about that. They're thinking about, oh yeah, those protesters who like glued themselves to the highway and blocked my traffic.
I wonder too, and it's just occurring to me as I'm sitting here, like if it's the like indigenous person guilt.
Right.
Like if that mindset, we got to be care about the environment and it's so associated with the destruction of entire populations that I wonder if Americans are also like, I don't want to look at that, like it's like almost
subconsciously
like a weird,
because I mean Native American communities are so good at protecting the environment. Like they have all the best practices. Like humanity has created a lot of the forest fires that we see every summer.
Oh yeah. I lived in California.
That's our fault. Native American communities know how to not have that happen.
Yeah.
They know how to thin the forest, prescribe burn, but of course they have a connection to the forest. So they don't want it all to burn down. They are not trying to destroy it. They are so good at conservation.
They don't have PG&E.
They don't have PG&E. They don't have gender reveal parties that start forest fires.
They don't have bad infrastructure and like unaccountable politicians
that don't manage forests. They are a little bit better in that way, but they also like know how to take care of these places because they lived in them for thousands of years and relied on their health. Like they lived in the American West and they knew how to prevent really bad natural forest fires because they literally instituted a bunch of practices. That's what we should be leaning on. But yeah, there could be some subconscious guilt, but I would say it's even more simple than that. I think it's the fact that when there's a forest fire that we aren't doing anything about, we're not taking action on it at all to prevent it, Newsom and Inslee and all the governors in those states can just say, well, climate change caused it.
Yeah, I know.
And that's so much easier for them to campaign on than saying, well, climate change could have had an effect on it, but really this was going to happen naturally and we made it worse by not managing our forests. That's a much more complicated thing to say than just blaming climate change.
Not managing our forests and also not forcing these energy companies that are monopolies to repair all of their all the stuff that goes haywire and starts these fires.
Right.
How many of them have been started by like a freaking broken transformer in the middle of the forest? It's ridiculous.
It is. And there's a bunch of studies that show between 90 and 97% of forest fires are started by humans being stupid. Like That could be
or homeless people.
It could be a car breaks down at the side of the road, which is how a huge one started in Arizona a couple summers ago. It could be truly a gender reveal party gone bad.
Boy Scout trying to escape.
I think Boy Scouts probably know what they're doing more than a gender reveal party.
Justin's like, why did she go there?
The Boy Scout's like, I hate being out here. I'm just going to light this place up.
Have you seen how many lawsuits there are
really?
against the Boy Scouts? It's like 80,000. It's crazy.
Wait, actually?
80,000. It's something crazy
what,
like that.
The kids just want to go home?
No, it's all like, they've all been like, how many? Yeah, 82,000 claims. That's why they had to like rebrand and rename everybody.
For forest fires?
No.
Oh.
For being molested.
Over being molested. Okay. That is so different than what I was thinking. I'm like, there's 82,000 cases of them starting forest fires? Holy crap.
They might have considered it a forest fire.
Oh no. This got bad real quick.
I'm sorry.
This is what I was expecting though. This is great. In my head, I'm just like thinking of little boys like starting forest fires, and I'm like, 82. I'm like, I thought Boy Scouts were like good at doing this. I was a Boy Scout. I don't remember anyone telling me that I shouldn't.
I thought Boy Scouts were good at this. Oh, I love you. Okay. I'm sorry. I don't know why. I don't know why I went there.
I
just had like a vision.
I feel like my brain with AI has like now become like an AI image generator where I just created an AI image of a bunch of Boy Scouts starting a forest fire. And it looks fake, and it looks like they have 6 fingers and then 2 heads, but it's funny.
I have tears rolling down my cheeks right now. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I should have kept it in.
So if you're listening to this podcast, the one thing to learn is that there's Boy Scouts starting forest fires everywhere. You can't believe it. They just can't stop. They're like a terrorist group at this point. Arson. See that smoke in the sky? Boy, that was
Scouts.
A boy.
Now I'm gonna think of this every time I hear about a forest
Unfortunately,
fire.
me too.
Like, it was a Boy Scout.
Okay, to be fair, that's better than the sad, depressing thoughts that would come normally from it. So we'll take that.
I mean, it's associated with some other bad, depressing thoughts, but
when that
okay.
happens, just text me Boy Scouts.
I'm going
to
be like, do you have Boy Scouts starting more forest fires? Wait, what's ACC again?
So I started, it's the replacement for the Boy Scouts. No, it's called...
I wouldn't lean into that branding.
We're the anti-forest fire Boy Scouts. No, it's called...
anti-child molestation.
Well, that's a given. That's a given, hopefully. ACC is the American Conservation Coalition, which is the only grassroots, like, chapter-based, activist-based...
Sorry.
nonprofit on the right of center for the environment.
Okay.
So it's a bunch of conservatives who care about the environment, who have chapters across the country. Like, for example, we have a chapter here in Austin, and most of our members are like 18 to 35, but we have people of all ages. A couple of years ago, we had 0 members. Today, we have 54,000. So there's been a lot of growth. Now we have 54,000 people to start forest fires versus the 82,000. At this point, you just can't stop laughing, so I'm going to keep leaning into it to be relatable here.
I sometimes hate my mind. It just always, it's like that manic, and that, I don't know, it's just ADD or something.
I would think you might have ADD too.
Yeah, maybe. My sister was like, how, she was talking about how her therapist was like, how have you never been diagnosed with ADD?
To your sister or about you?
To my sister, who's a genius. And her business is literally called ADD because she organizes people's homes. And she's like, I don't know. It's literally what I named. She definitely has
ADD then.
Oh, but she is a
homes.
genius. Yeah. Like a genius at it.
I have ADD, which I didn't find out till college, but I could never focus on tests, and my parents didn't want to take me in because there's like a stigma around it. I feel like now there's not really a stigma around it.
No, they'll just give you math and be like,
here you go.
Get back in there.
Get back in there. And then you're like, okay. But it does help you in a lot of ways because I'm like super sporadic. I'm doing a lot of things at once, starting a lot of forest fires everywhere, and then putting them out everywhere. And I'm sure organizational home stuff is good for that.
Oh yeah, she's like a brilliant genius at it. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, I mean you can handle a lot of things at once, but that's like why I was able to start this organization in college. I think because I was going to college for 40 hours a week or whatever. And then I was also working at least 40 hours a week. I took 100 flights every year to do donor events and speaking engagements and stuff during the school year. And what we built from all those like crazy early college years is basically the anti-Greta grassroots environmental movement.
Right.
So we're not anti-environment. We're just
Right.
like anti-bad ideas for the environment. We're pro-good ideas for the environment. We have a huge presence in DC, and although it's not bipartisan or nonpartisan yet, in the past 5 years, there's been at least a dozen federal policies passed on the environment that are bipartisan.
Oh, that's amazing.
So it's starting to change.
Yeah.
And
like which ones? Can you give me some examples?
yeah, so the best one that I was the most proud of is the Great American Outdoors Act, which funded our national parks.
I'm sorry.
You can't stop thinking about me.
No, it's like now I'm stuck on it.
Can that be like the cover photo for this?
Oh man, no.
The AI generated.
Yeah, the AI generated. I just need water. Go on.
But our national parks were $13 billion in debt. So when you were going to the national parks, that little $25 thing you give them or whatever was not really helping.
Right.
And a lot of the money was just going to the general government pool. It wasn't actually going back to the national parks at all. And so we changed this law so that oil and gas money that was already being collected from tax dollars would be redistributed to the national parks instead of the general government fund. And we eliminated the backlog of debt. And so all these new buildings that are popping up, the new roads in national parks, the better trail systems, better forest management, all that stuff was happening because of this bill. It passed with massive bipartisan support. I think over 40 Republicans and 40 Democrats in the Senate voted for it.
Wow.
And then Trump signed it into law too.
Wow.
So, and I think it was passed during an election year. So a time when no side wants to give the other a win. That just shows the convening power of this issue. But the thing that's cool at national parks is like, it's kind of a no-brainer, and you're not like trying to use it for political purposes. You're not trying to like further a socialist agenda or like drill baby drill.
Right.
And that's what makes it work, is that kind of middle of the road approach.
And what's another one? Another
one would be the Clean Energy Act of 2020, which invested in American carbon capture, nuclear, battery technology to store excess wind and solar energy. And it was the biggest investment in clean energy in United States history. Also bipartisan, signed into law by Trump.
Wow.
So Trump, I wouldn't say is to credit for those because he wasn't like the one who spurred it, but he was happy to sign it, and Republicans led it in the House and Senate, which is
what's happened under the Biden administration that you've been happy about?
He passed. There have been two also bipartisan bills that passed during his time as president. One was focused on helping farmers reduce emissions on their property. So instead of penalizing them for being anti-environment, which everyone tries to villainize farmers, which is so weird, so dumb.
I don't understand that.
We also I could go into a huge rabbit hole on food, but American farmers are at least 200% more efficient compared to every other country.
Yeah.
And so if you're like villainizing farmers here, farmers somewhere else are just going to take the demand for food and they're going to do it way less environmentally friendly. And it usually happens in Brazil where they're cutting down the Amazon.
Right.
So it is really backwards. But this is meant to basically say, hey, farmer, keep doing what you're doing. If you can sequester, like suck up carbon on your property or use more fuel efficient, whatever, we're going to give you a incentive and tax break and have an extra income for your pocket.
Oh, cool.
And there's a data mechanism that the USDA has put together that tracks that for them, so they don't have to be the number crunchers and the analysts and figure all that stuff out themselves.
Okay.
And so it puts money back in their pockets, which they're obviously always kind of barely making ends meet, especially if there's a bad crop season or whatever. And so Biden signed that, but it passed in the Senate 92-8 or something, and 46 Republicans voted for it and 46 Democrats.
Oh, wow.
So that's a really good example. And then another one is this topic of permitting reform. Basically the government takes 10 years to approve projects because they like to take time because it's the government. Yeah. If you think about filing taxes and how complicated that is, think about that on steroids for this. I mean, that's basically how it is for a company trying to do business in the United States and get permitting for energy projects.
Right, right.
So there was a bill that was introduced by Republicans and Democrats to accelerate that permitting process and basically require that the government make a decision after a certain amount of time so that it's not just in the ether until the government's like, I'll get to it later.
Right.
And then eventually it gets to it later and the company's like, we went bankrupt because we were waiting for you the whole time.
Right, right.
And so that I'm supportive of Biden doing. So both Trump and Biden actually are more aligned on this than they'll ever admit. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if Trump and Harris are more aligned on it because I think she was kind of riding the coattails of Biden. But I was happy with Trump on the environment, and I was actually kind of happy with Biden on the environment too. But we'll see where it goes from here.
What do you think Kamala's position is on it?
Whatever is the most popular for her base today. Like that's the problem with her is that you don't really know what she stands for. And she could be the big government cop bureaucrat from California that's going to arrest everyone for doing marijuana in their bedrooms, or she could be the let's legalize marijuana for everyone. You just you don't know who she is. And that's what I don't trust about her. This is the first time in my life that I've considered voting for Trump because I truly don't trust Kamala at all. Trump tells you what he thinks, and like everyone's shocked about his abortion comments, and it's like, how? Yeah. Like he did not flip-flop on it. No. If you were pro-life and supporting Trump, you were not paying, and that's like a big reason, you weren't paying attention. Yeah. Like he has been pro-choice in some way, shape, or form since he started talking about the issue.
Yeah, he's pretty moderate on it.
He is. He's pretty moderate on a lot of things, and he's open about it, and he's not going to lie about it. So that's what I like about him on this issue is that I know what I'm getting. Yeah. He has too many people around him who are focused on oil and gas and coal just because that's associated with the Republican Party. Mm-hmm. But I also think Kamala has way too many people just in the clean energy space, and that's part of the tribalism that's hurting us. Yeah.
Do you go talk to like colleges and stuff?
Yeah. So this fall I'm doing a huge college tour.
Oh, cool.
Bunch of like Ivy Leagues, but also like the University of Wyoming and Colorado Boulder and Texas, some colleges in Texas. And people are like ready for a more hopeful approach on this because everyone in my generation cares a lot about climate and the environment. Mm-hmm. They believe climate change is real. They want the environment to be protected, but they don't want to ban oil and gas. They don't want to have to pay more for everything. Inflation's already bad enough. Like they want to have a brighter future. They want to work for companies that are doing really cool things on this subject. And that's the approach that I'm bringing when I go to these campuses and that our organization's bringing. And it's resonating incredibly well. The problem that I've found that I have is that when I go to these college campuses, it doesn't capture people's attention on like a poster or something as much as like Charlie Kirk's coming to campus. Because you're either going to go there because you're a fanatic on the right or because you're so angry about him on the left. The people I'm trying to reach, which is the rational middle of like 70%, 80% of young people, they are kind of tapped out of politics right now.
But adults are too.
Right. And they're not even like paying attention. No. They're like tunnel vision. Like I'm probably going to vote, but that's about it. Like I'm not paying attention to anything else. And like my girlfriend's like that. All my friends are like that. My parents are like that.
Yeah,
like,
everybody I know is like that right now. They're just like, I'm done. They're just completely like checked out. I don't think the space that we exist in online recognizes like how done the majority of people are with it.
And their hardcore fanatic base is all they've got. Yeah. And they're never going to reach anybody else. So like you see like a Turning Point conference or whatever, and it has like a lot of people. That's the most amount of people that could be in that room at one time. Yeah. And nobody else really resonates with that message. But if you like I'm having a conversation with Van Jones at Johns Hopkins University. Mm-hmm. He and I are like debating. I don't know how many people are going to show up, a few hundred or something.
What are you debating about?
The role of government in solving environmental challenges, because he's more leaning on government, where I'm more leaning on technology and innovation.
It's so weird that anyone would trust the government for anything.
Everyone wants to trust the government for their pet projects, right?
What do they do well?
They're good at failing. They're good at like making us disappointed, even though we didn't think we could be more disappointed.
That's such a good answer. That'll be the clip. What's the government good at? They're really good at failing.
They're good at over-promising and under-delivering.
And letting you down.
They're kind of manipulative.
They're like bad parents.
Yeah. Or like an abusive partner.
Yeah, an abusive ex.
They're like, I want you to do this for me, but I'm not going to tell you how.
Yeah.
I want you to take me to dinner, but I'm not going to tell you where.
It is
and then
true.
you choose the wrong dinner place, and they're like, you didn't do this right, and I'm gonna put you in jail. Even
God, do you follow Billy Binion? He writes for Reason, and he's always on the beat of like all the government overreach and like the FBI crashing into houses and taking people's money and homes, and like everyone should be following him. And following,
he is actually
because
so
again,
good.
this is like bipartisan stuff we should all be working on to fix, because it is criminal what the government gets away with when it like civil forfeiture.
Oh
and
my God.
It is bananas. It'll be like, here's a 92-year-old woman. She owed $7 on her house in taxes and couldn't pay it. And then they took her home, sold it for 4 times as much, and she didn't receive a penny and is now homeless. You're like, what the fuck? How is that? And it's like an entire thread of these stories.
Yeah, they're everywhere. And like so the government is like this story. So I was in Toronto a couple.
I should have him on the podcast, actually.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah,
because he'd probably have much better stories than this one. But
no,
this
your
one's
stories
good.
are great too.
Toronto. I was in Toronto. I was coming back home to the United States, and they had like the USA checkpoint in Toronto for some reason. And there was this kid running late for a flight, bawling his eyes out, trying to get through the line to like have the passport checked to get back into America. And he was right behind me. And he's like, can I go in front of you? And I was like, of course, because I had enough time. He gets in front, and the Homeland Security agent was like, get the fuck back into your place, or otherwise we're going to have to detain you. We're just in like the little squiggly line to get up to the passport thing. And I like was like, totally go in front of me. Like, you got to get to your flight. He's crying. Like, I felt so bad for this guy. Now they have this Homeland Security guy just screaming at him just for trying to get one spot ahead of me in line and telling him that he was going to get detained for that. And the kid was just like so shaken up, maybe like 18 years old, 17 years old, maybe his first time flying. And I was just thinking to myself, like, what gets that guy off, right?
Yeah.
Like that guy was yelling. It's like, there's this huge power complex of like, I'm the most important person in the world. And it's like, you're just a freaking Homeland Security agent in Toronto helping people get through the border. You're basically worthless. Sorry.
That
like,
border is horrific though.
Yeah. But like the US government has this, everyone, the IRS, the EPA, the Department of Homeland Security, like they have this like power complex, but really they're just like all of us, and they think that they're better than all of us. And then they treat us like they're basically looking for ways for us to screw up, and they're going to pounce at every turn. And it's really inhumane. And I see that on the environment all the time. Like the EPA and the Department of the Interior, they're looking for ways to stifle America from succeeding, honestly. Yeah. They're the biggest opponents of their own goals, because instead of encouraging innovation and environmental protection, they're encouraging 10 years of a waiting period to approve a clean energy project. And they're encouraging a hands-off approach of don't touch the environment, otherwise we're going to hurt it. But that actually ends up hurting it more because we have these forest fires and stuff.
Right.
It's like they're the biggest enemies of their own goals. And like, if that kid was like in Canada and he was from Canada, like why would he ever come back to the United States ever? Like that, like I felt embarrassed for my country when that happened. And I just think the government has this huge ego complex, and it prevents us from getting anything done. And these people are bureaucrats. They're there for their entire lives, serving in DC, and they're in their own bubble. Like even my own team, when they go to DC, they work in DC, they get surrounded by it. Their whole mood changes. Their whole tenor changes. Like they become different people. Yeah. Because it's a different world there. Yeah. And it's not good. It's not a good world.
No tyranny like petty tyranny.
Yeah. And that's what they're focused on. They're not focused on like solving big complex problems. They're focused on ruining people's lives over small problems. And that's a really bad way for a government to function. That's where we're at. And
like also can't protect their citizens at the same time. No. You know, it's like
why worry about the border in Mexico to the United States when you can yell at a 17-year-old. And I know it's not that simple, but like that's the way our government works. Like, why focus on the horrible things that are happening in our country that they could take action on when they could make a problem out of something really small and avoid tackling the hard problem?
Because that's easier.
Right. It's way easier.
Yeah, it's much easier.
I mean, think about like if you had a to-do list, right? And it's like, change my entire life because my life's going on the wrong direction, or complete this one little small task. You're definitely going to complete that one little small task, but the government has a duty to solve these complex problems, and they are running from every single one.
But I wouldn't even say it's like complete this small task. It's like
create a small task.
It's like should I fix my life because it's going on the wrong track, or yell at the waitress? You know, like
that's a way better analogy. That's like, exactly what's happening. And you know that when that's happening, that those people have deeper problems, right? Like when you were yelled at as a waitress, and I was a waiter too, like in the moment, like especially when you're new, maybe it would like hurt your feelings or whatever. But at the end of the day, when you reflect on it, like you know that person has some serious problems going on, but they're taking it out on you. And I feel like the government is like the bully from high school that peaked in high school, and they don't know how to take their anger out in any other way, so they join the government.
Well, especially like these organizations like you're talking about, it feels like that's exactly the person that they hire.
Right.
Is like the dude who peaked in high school and doesn't know what to, you know, he still wants some of that feeling of power.
And they're giving it. Like we somehow allow them to have that power, and we don't really push back. And it is really what's really disenfranchising about what I do, though, is like I love the inspiring parts. Like people want this message. People want this to be nonpartisan. They want common sense ideas. But the closer I get to work in politics, the more I realize how corrupt it is and how impossible it is to get things done compared to what it should be in a democracy, and how much worse it is than people actually think. I don't think that there are a lot of conspiracies that end up being true. I think it's a lot of incompetence and power complexes that they don't even realize. Like these are some of the most basic and stupid people that I've ever met in politics. They're not capable of carrying out some like massive
this
conspiracy.
is my husband always says. He's like, why would anyone think that all of these incompetent people are also capable of masterminding?
They would never make it in the real world, these people.
Also, they can't keep secrets.
No,
like they're too busy showing pictures of dead bodies to their buddies at the
each
bar.
Other over. Like they're always trying to one up each other so they can get up higher on that ladder.
Right.
The moment that there'd be some conspiracy, they'd leak the shit out of it because they want to get up in the world. Like,
right.
So there's no, I mean, I'm not saying there's no conspiracies from the federal government, but I think most of them are probably overblown or didn't happen. But there's a massive level of incompetence that is scary. Like it is actually scary for our country.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That seems, I feel like there would be a lot that would be, what do you think about the like people, is it mostly boomers who are like, climate change isn't real? Like, is the earth getting warmer? What's the deal? Yeah,
that's a really complex question, because similar to most things, both sides are, that in my opinion, both sides are wrong on this. So the left is saying that the world's ending by 2030 or 2040, or that if we don't do something, there's that clock in Times Square that I opened my book talking about that says you have this many years before we all die.
The end of the world clock.
But then the right's saying that
I love that
nothing's happening, or that there is stuff happening, but this is actually good for the world. This warming is actually good for the world.
Who's saying that?
Like Alex Epstein and a lot of the like farther right oil people.
Okay.
And
are they paid by Russia too?
Maybe Russian oil and gas. I don't know. I haven't asked. That's a good question to ask them next time I see them. But when I've gone, so I did this thing for the Daily Caller where I went around and talked to climate scientists around the country. And I tried to even it out based on right and left leaning climate scientists.
But are there any right leaning? Okay.
And there's one named Kerry Emanuel. He's out of MIT. There's a guy at Berkeley, actually, who's big on nuclear power, who's conservative. And
they haven't been shamed out?
Well, they basically don't Cliff Mass at the University of Washington. Some of the most liberal universities have some of these conservative climate researchers.
Interesting.
And you can tell because they challenge a lot of the status quo on climate. They're not going to talk about other issues. That's not their thing. So you can just tell that they're conservative because they're challenging some of the status quo. So I interviewed a lot of them, but then I also interviewed some of the left of center climate scientists. And there's like a unanimous agreement on these things. One, carbon emissions from our cars, from drilling oil and gas, etc., that is causing a warmer planet. It is steadily increasing over time. There's not like one day of 120 degrees is not climate change. Maybe that day would have been 116 without climate change, but now it's 120.
Right.
So it's still going to be freaking hot,
right,
but it's just a little bit hotter.
Right.
So it's this steady increase.
Mm-hmm.
And that increases humidity. So there's going to be more rain because there's glaciers melting. There's more things, dissolving into the atmosphere. And so there's going to be more rainfall. And that if there's a hurricane, it will be slightly worse. If there's going to be a tornado, but it's not going to like create a hurricane out of thin air. And so that is hard to comprehend because you can't say that the world's going to end because of climate change, and you can't blame every extreme weather event on climate change, but you also can't say that there's no reality behind it at all.
Right.
And we should be taking steps to reduce that steady increase of temperature, which would be reducing carbon emissions. But when I've talked to these scientists, the number one thing that they get frustrated by are not people who deny climate change. It's the people who are alarmists about it. Because the alarmists are claiming to be on the side of science, but they're not representing science at all. And so then people don't trust the science because they're like, well, Al Gore said the world was going to end by 2000 or there wasn't going to be snow by 2000, and there's snow, so therefore the science is wrong. The science didn't say that there wasn't going to be snow by 2000. Al Gore took the most extreme scenario of a scientific document, which had like a 0.1% chance of happening, and he said that was what was going to happen. And so then everyone's like, the science sucks. Right. And so all these scientists are like, what the hell, Al Gore? What the hell, AOC? Like, why are you misrepresenting us? And because the far right's just saying the science is wrong. And they're not saying, well, we have better science usually. They're usually just blaming that the science is rigged. When in reality, the scientists are just these nerdy people who are like not spokespeople, and they're so frustrated with the spokespeople for misrepresenting them. So, so that's what the science says about climate change. And so I'm worried about it from a long-term standpoint because, like, if you're a farmer, a small increase on the margins does matter. If you're a glacier that sits at a temperature of 32 degrees, but now it might be 33 degrees, that matters. Like, those small changes matter, but it's not doomsday. And we can take not drastic steps to reverse it.
I grew up during the, like, ice age, next ice age is coming time.
Was Scrat there?
That's when I grew up.
Do you know who Scrat is?
No.
Oh.
Who's Scrat?
Do you know who Scrat is? Yeah.
From the movie?
The little cutie guy.
I should know this because I have a child.
Can you pull up Scrat?
We haven't.
Really
I know
important.
who it is. We haven't watched that movie yet.
You don't know. We're pulling it up.
Okay. But wait. That's what I grew up with. Was like the new, it wasn't, everything was going to get warmer. It was going to, okay. I didn't know that was
That's
the
my boy.
name. Scrat.
It's my spirit animal.
I can see that. It looks just like you.
It's actually striking.
Like,
really. It's like,
climate change!
But
you're like,
but he's,
I'm not an alarmist!
I just like my nut. Okay, never mind. I didn't say that, did I?
No.
Yeah. What I like about him is that he's always at the top of a mountain or something.
Yeah.
That's really what I resonate with.
I like him.
There is.
He is funny in that movie. Are you tired of wading through media misinformation, trying to figure out a news outlet's spin or bias on any given story? Ground News is the solution you didn't know you needed. Ground News is the most complete news comparison app. It lets you make sense of the news on your own terms by letting you easily compare how a story is covered by different sources across the political spectrum and around the world. Compare any news article you want, filtering it by bias, left, right, or center, by location, so you can understand how news is being covered around the world, and by time, knowing when the story was first reported and how the reporting has changed. I'm obsessed with these guys. I love their blind spot report because you don't think you have blind spots, and then you see this report and you're like, oh, yeah, I had no idea that even happened. Start seeing the news more clearly, find out the truth, and stay up to date with what's going on in the world with the Ground News app. Use our affiliate link below to get 15% off. That's Ground News. Use the link below to get 15% off. Walk-ins Welcome is brought to you by Phetasy Productions. We are no longer on a network. We are completely independent. If you love this show and you love what we do, we are asking more now than ever before for you to join us in our community at Phetasy.com. Become a paid supporter and help support the podcast that you love. Being that we are independent means we're taking all of the expenses back, and that means that we need our listeners to support us. If you're also listening and you have a product and you want to advertise with us, please email me at phetasycomedy@gmail.com. We're hoping that we leap and the net will appear. Please become a paid supporter at Phetasy.com and help us stitch our net together. Thank you. Yeah, that's what I came of age with, was like, that was the big alarmism.
Prediction,
yeah, that we were going to enter into a new ice age.
Well, that's just actually really stupid, because like if we were like really cool and had a bunch of tailpipes with carbon emissions and other things flowing into this room right now, we just had them all stacked around the wall and everyone's car is running and all the emissions were coming in here, the room would get warmer. Like it's like a simple scientific experiment. You put carbon in a box, and the more carbon you put in there, the warmer that box gets.
So my question is, how much of it is cars and whatnot, and how much of it is like industry? What's the biggest contributor to this?
So in the United States, the energy that we're producing is starting to go down in carbon emissions, because we switched from coal to natural gas, and then we also are doing solar, wind, nuclear. The transportation actually just surpassed electricity for the first time a few years ago in the United States. And partially that's because there's more cars on the road. There's more airplanes that are flying.
You know what it is? Amazon. I promise that's what it is.
All these individual boxes going everywhere.
It can't be good.
Because it was all in one box or one truck before. Now it's in all these different directions.
I mean, if I
actually think Amazon's so bad for the environment.
If you're talking,
and for society.
Oh yeah, but like even all the cardboard and everything.
Oh my God.
Like sometimes it's actually comical. You'll get something where it's like this big, and you're like, really, this can't be good for the environment. But if you're and how many years when did it exceed?
It was about 5 years ago that it exceeded that.
Well, that's right. Pandemic,
and that's around the time when
Prime
kind of went gangbusters.
That's when what?
Like Amazon Prime kind of went gangbusters when
I was in college.
Everyone
was locked up.
Yeah.
But we were all locked up ordering stuff.
Exactly.
So we weren't driving around, so there's no explanation, but everybody in the America and the world was getting deliveries.
Right.
And for everything.
That's true.
And now people who aren't doing that just do that. Like I was a late adopter to like ordering stuff online. My husband was kind of always doing it. And now, it just seems like everyone does it that way. I wonder if there's some.
Well, so in my apartment complex,
because that seems weird.
It is really weird. In my apartment complex, there's a guy who delivers all of our packages, and he only services 2 apartment complexes because there's that many packages to deliver all day, every day.
We ordered something the other morning, and it arrived at noon.
Yeah, I ordered something.
That's crazy.
No, it's crazy. It's amazing and it's cool, but like the trade-offs are like incredible. And it's not just like I ordered my sister a bunch of gifts, and like I ordered 3 separate gifts to go to her apartment, or when I could have like bought them all at a store and shipped them all in one box. And so you're right, like that is definitely contributing. So transportation is the biggest emitter now in the United States, and like China, India, transportation and energy are very similar because they're still using coal and a lot of natural gas. We need to decarbonize transportation, but the 100% EV thing is a complete BS. Like
that's why it's going to be drones.
Yeah, I mean, it could be drones, but like we don't have enough minerals to create EVs for every human being on this planet, and we don't have a grid that's resilient enough to charge an electric vehicle for everyone. The best thing for the environment right now is a hybrid, but we're not pushing that. And the best thing for energy consumption would be nuclear, but we're not pushing that either. Right. And so we're like not pushing the things that would actually help us decrease these levels. We're focusing on these like really shiny objects, like a Cybertruck or whatever, which are ugly.
Yeah.
and we're not actually focusing on the real problem.
Everyone blames, because nuclear's come so far in the technology, and everybody blames, Chernobyl and everything for the bad representation. And I'm like, no, it was The Simpsons.
Literally The Simpsons. No one really cares about Russia.
No, and no one's old enough to remember that other than
you can tell
our
I'm not paid
parents.
off by Russia because I don't care about Russia at all.
I think it was The Simpsons.
It was The Simpsons. And it was also the environmentalists.
Yeah.
So it's so backwards, but this is a true fact. Fossil fuel companies gave the Sierra Clubs of the world money to talk poorly about nuclear.
Oh no, I 100% believe that.
And it's a proven fact. And they were doing it because they were scared that nuclear was going to take over the energy portfolio of the United States. Richard Nixon had a goal of 1,000 nuclear plants in the United States by 2000. 1,000 nuclear plants.
That's crazy.
We have a few dozen. They shut that down, and they did it in the name of the environment. Oh, nuclear is going to cause all this harm to the environment. It's going to kill all the species of birds, and it's going to flow into your rivers, and it's going to do all this stuff. And none of it was based in truth.
Acid rain. That's what I remember hearing when I was a kid.
Totally. I mean, people still talk about that. I mean, and environmentalists are still really scared of it because they joined this organization that told them that nuclear was horrible. And it is really backwards because France and the United Arab Emirates and all these other countries have had no problem building nuclear energy. They're building it in less than 5 years. Each plant is being built in less than 5 years. And the vast majority of their power comes from nuclear. And we can't do that here. It takes over 15 years to build a nuclear plant. It's only 10% of our energy source. And we're actually trying to shut them down still. It's stupid.
Yeah, I mean, you see what happens with Germany and how geopolitically destabilizing it is too when you're energy dependent on other countries. So there's also
and they shut down their nuclear plants.
Yeah, there's also an incentive, it seems, for just global stability that people would have their own energy and not have to be reliant on other people.
So a fun fact about California is that over 60% of their fossil fuels that they use are imported because they shut down all their imported from other countries, sorry. And they use a lot of fossil fuels in California because they can't meet the demand with just solar and wind, which they tried to do. They use fossil fuels from Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, Ecuador, Colombia, and some other third world country. And over 75% of their imported fossil fuels from other countries comes from those nations that are not our allies at all.
Right.
And they have horrible human rights standards. It's way higher emissions, environmental standards. And it's all because they did what Germany did, which is basically shut down anything that wasn't wind and solar. And in Arizona, we have a nuclear plant, and we ship California a ton of our power during the day because they can't use their own. Mm-hmm. And then there's a coal plant I toured in Utah that ships 80% of their power to California at night because the solar is off and the wind usually doesn't blow as hard. So it ends up backfiring and hurting the environment more than anything else. And but yet Gavin Newsom pretends that he's the climate governor or the pro-environmental governor, when in reality he's doing worse than every other governor. And it's just that's the problem with the environmental community, is that it's not based in reality at all.
Yeah. God, you're doing the Lord's work, man. Jesus. You're actually out there doing something.
I'm trying. It's this this tribalistic mindset in America right now is making my job harder, but it's also ruining our country.
Yeah.
It's either this way or this way, and there's nothing in between. And so as much as people don't want to hear it, neither side has a monopoly of good ideas. And the states that are doing the best on my issues are the ones that are purple states that have a Republican governor who is working with the Democrats and the Republicans in their state legislature to come up with a solution that works for both sides.
Right.
If you think about it, conservatives represent rural communities for the most part these days, and liberals represent more urban communities. Both sides need to be represented.
Yeah.
But if you only have a one-party rule on one side or the other, you're only having those people represented.
Yeah.
And so the best ideas come when those things mesh.
Yeah.
And it's not compromise. It's it's more additive than anything. Mm. And that's what makes my job so hard, is that people are so in their little silos of what the what their news sources are saying or what the donors are saying if you're a candidate, that they're not thinking about the other half of America. And that's what's going to ruin America before anything else.
They're not even thinking about the other half of their marriage a lot of the time. I mean, people are really struggling.
Especially in politics.
Yeah.
There's very few good marriages in politics.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Which we could get into, but that's, it's probably up there with the Boy Scouts.
We'll save that one for next time.
Political marriages?
Yes.
I think I'm going to skip that one.
What's your biggest defective character?
Defective character?
Defect of character. Like, or vice or whatever. Like, what's something you're working on?
Where to start? Taking care of myself, like prioritizing myself. I like to work a lot because I care a lot about it, but I'm also
gather that. I'm like, I'm exhausted listening to you talk about your college experience.
I really always put myself last, and so I don't like put my work last. I put my like own personal health last.
Yeah,
and that ends up creating a lot of imbalance in my life. So I'm working on that.
That's not sustainable.
Oh, I know. I already had to take a sabbatical, which is something that most 26-year-olds don't have to take. So I'm well aware. If anyone in my personal life is listening to this, they will know that this has been an uphill battle for me. So that's been hard, like, mental health, physical health, kind of taking care of myself. But I also like am super sporadic, super ADHD. And so I'm really good in a startup mode, but I'm really bad if things start to kind of scale. So that's why I actually stepped down as president of my organization last year to become chairman of the board, because there are two really great organizational leaders who were better suited to run the organization than I was.
Right.
That's a trait that I don't think I can fix because that's just like my brain.
Yeah.
Whereas like the personal health stuff, I definitely could work on.
What's your biggest asset?
My biggest asset is that I care a lot. And it's genuine care. Like, there's nothing that I want to do more than do this work. And so like I could be making $5 or $10 million a day. Like it wouldn't matter. And, for 4 years of running this organization that I started, I didn't take a single paycheck. And like, I just like, every day I wake up, this is what I want to do. I care about it so deeply. I try to immerse myself in nature all the time so I can like remind myself about why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I care a lot about the people that are on my team. I care a lot about the people who surround me, and I like my mentors and my family. And I just care a lot about everything that I do. So it can be a vice too, because if I care so much, then I might put myself last because I'm doing all these things but I also like will stop at nothing to just run through a wall to try to get things done. And that's not going to stop anytime soon.
That's awesome. Where can we find you?
You can find me at Benji Backer on social media. The book, The Conservative Environmentalist, is on every book platform. Our organization...
Get it from Amazon. Just
get it from Amazon. It'll come in a huge box. And it's actually a mini book. It comes in like the little...
It's a pocketbook.
It's a little pocketbook. You can't read the words, but it's okay. And then our organization's at ACC_national. I'm about to start a nonprofit that's more of a marketing kind of grassroots push called Nature is Non-Partisan. And ACC is dedicated to getting conservatives represented and engaged. This is different. This is like, how can we convene liberals and conservatives in politics, in business, in the grassroots to find solutions? Can we create an identity around the environment, a brand identity that makes people think of the environment as nonpartisan again?
Right.
Can we see stickers and hats and things all over the place with that mantra? And so we're going to be creating that soon. And I hope people who follow all those things will also consider following Nature's Nonpartisan.
Amazing. That's awesome. We just lost our producer.
Our producer just left.
He's like,
I want to stay in touch with Benji. I'm actually leaving. I'm getting out of here.
Well, thank you so much.
This is like years in the making. I appreciate this.
And it's been so fun. And you really are doing such amazing work. And I look forward to seeing to all the places you go. And I will help you in whatever way I can.
Well, same
I
here.
really believe in what you're doing. And I think there is an opportunity right now. People are a little bit like, I don't know where I belong.
Right.
But I see that as like, I'm not a policy wonk, I wish I was more of one, because I think staying focused on those issues and solutions. And I'm good at sitting down with people at a dinner table and being like, I don't want to hear about the bitching.
Right.
What are the solutions? And even
That's
if
what
it's
we
just
need.
like their personal
Well, that's
life.
what you do. I mean,
Yeah.
you have such an incredible network of people you work with that are so diverse, and I feel like it speaks to how possible that is. Like,
It is possible.
It's really good to have people like you and I, and there are so many others that are showing that it's like, it's so possible to do this, and people are so scared of it because they don't think it's possible. But like, you have such diverse guests, so many diverse friends. Like, I didn't even know, I still don't really know where you sit politically, because I see you interacting with people from every side all the time in a positive way and in a negative way, where it's like you're free thinking. When you're free thinking, you aren't beholden to one identity, and that's what we need more of. So I will also always be.
I don't know where I sit. I mean, you don't know because I don't know, because
Right.
I feel like I have to kind of take it issue by issue,
year by year.
Yeah, year by year, and like you, I also look at these things in a more adult way than I did when I was younger. Like, I'm evaluating trade-offs. It's
Right.
like, I also don't have the feeling like that this is the end.
No,
you know,
this is not the last big election.
I've heard, and I think again,
You've heard that so many times.
Yeah, I think learning like from George W. and Gore and thinking that was true. Like I've joked about this before on Rogan and other places where it's like I read my journals from when I was in my 20s and I sound like AOC.
Yeah.
Like I was very, very worried and alarmist, and now I think with age and just seeing the pendulum swing back and forth in America, you kind of, this is why so many older people are just like, whatever.
Yeah, this is.
But so many people make their money now off. I mean, this is like in your space
alarm.
too.
Yeah. Fear mongering is what sells these days, and like
being that it's easier to be on the it's easier for Planned Parenthood to raise money when there are Republicans in charge than when they actually have to make changes and do something.
That's actually the real problem, is that the incentive is not solving problems, because when you don't solve problems, you get more money. You can complain more.
Yeah.
You can be more upset, and I don't even know if people know that they're doing it, but it's like, it's easier for the Sierra Club to raise money knowing that Donald Trump is gutting environmental things than if they were getting things done. Similar to, like, it's easier for the NRA to raise money if there's like a threat of gun control laws.
Yeah.
And they whether they admit it to themselves or not, they love that because it grows their organization. People ask me all the time, what would you rather have for ACC? Would you rather have Trump win or Harris win? Just for ACC's perspective. Would you raise more money? Would you? And I'm like,
Harris.
Probably, but like, I don't even want to answer that question, because that's not a good way of looking at things. Like,
but it is like our joke with dumpster fire, where we're like, what's bad for America is good for dumpster fire. Like, either way, we're gonna have shit to joke about. It's
more
not,
memes,
it's not
more
great.
memes.
Not great. It reminds me of that Michael Crichton book that he like got canceled for. Remember the one he did about environmentalists and exactly this?
Really?
Like, they were basically environmental terrorists who were trying to like raise money. What is the name of that book? Yes. Have you read that? Oh, you should read it.
It sounds right.
I think he got like canceled for it.
Was he talking about the alarmism?
He was talking about like big NGO essentially, and how in order to like exist, they have to keep
getting
the
crazier.
Problem going
and keep getting more fanatical about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you have to keep getting more extreme, because you have to out extreme the last time.
Yeah.
And a lot of the donors, whether that be small dollar or large dollar, are only going to. We started this conversation talking about how frustration is the best inspiration. That's how these donors think about it. It's like, oh, I'm already like, this is my base level of frustration about the issue. Oh, you told me it's this bad, I'm going to donate. Okay, now my base level's here. Oh, now you told me it's this bad, now I'm going to donate again. Like, you keep having to raising the bar of how bad things are for people to engage with you.
Yeah.
And when in reality, things are still way down here, and you're thinking that the world's coming to an end.
Yeah.
And like, I remember crying at the Mitt Romney victory party when I was 14 years old, had braces on and still hadn't glowed up yet. And like, I was told that was the most important election of my lifetime.
Right.
That everything was over, and like, Obama was the worst thing in the entire world. And it was not the most important election of my lifetime.
Yeah.
But that's what everyone was saying. And everyone said that every election that I've paid attention to politics.
I feel like everyone said that
even in the midterms, people say that.
Oh yeah, my dad has been purging all of his stuff, and he gave me all of these books that came from my grandparents' house. And one of them is like political speeches, but they're from like the 1800s and the 1900s.
Were they doing the same thing?
But there's one line, I think I'll send the picture to you. I was like, I found the moment everything went bad in America. And it's like, in order to be effective, you need to be entertaining. And I was like, this is where it all went wrong.
So what's really, I think this is actually like such a great note to end on, because when you have that mentality of this is the most important election of our lifetimes, of course you're going to hate the person who's voting for the other side.
Right.
Because how could you? This country's going to shit if you vote for this person and that's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
You're evil.
Yeah.
And people are treating their family members and their friends and all these things like they're evil. Like I have tons of family members who are voting for Harris and tons of them that are voting for Trump.
Same.
Tons that are super alienated and might not even vote for either one of them.
Yep.
And all of them are great people.
Yep.
None of them are evil. And
except for that one guy.
Except for that one guy, of course, on both sides. But it's just like, if that's our mindset, then we're just going to keep hating each other over and over again, because it really is like a war at that point. Like,
exactly.
If you don't take the Confederacy side or, the North side, like, then you're part of them.
Right.
And you want that for eternity. You are such a hateful person. And that's not how we should be, and that's not how things are. And when we have that mindset, we're actually manifesting the reality of shit happening, because we're pinning each other against each other more. We're getting less done, and our country is actually turning into that dystopia that everyone says it currently is, because we're convinced that that's what it is. It's just
right. Yeah. I know. But there are people like you out there, and that gives me hope.
There's more of us out there. We just got to talk.
There's more
we got to
of
talk
us
more.
than them, actually.
We got to talk more.
Yeah,
we can't be aloof.
Yeah,
like that's the thing. Like, I try to convince all my. We cannot sit on the sidelines. That doesn't mean we have to be loud and annoying and show up to rallies and be like the political wizards. Like, no, just like talk a little bit more about this stuff. Normalize balanced opinions.
Normalize normalcy.
Normalize the frustration that you have.
Yeah.
Like, tell people that you're frustrated by politics. Tell people that it's not representative of you. Tell people that you don't want to vote for either candidate. Talk about it. Like, people need to hear that, because right now all they're hearing is the horrible one-sidedness that both sides are giving us.
Yeah, and you get attacked by both sides, and it's hard if you don't have like a community to support you and to feel like you're backed up. It's very isolating. It's isolating if you're a liberal amongst MAGAs or a MAGA amongst liberals, and if you feel like none of these people speak to you, and you feel like the people who kind of sit in that nuance you take those hits from both sides, and then it's like exhausting, and then you tune out.
I bet you think about it all the time when you're posting something or saying something, like, because you're threading a needle all the time, because you're trying to say what you believe, but what you believe on one issue is going to inherently piss off a different side than what you believe on a different issue. And so, and this is what I struggle with too, is like, you can say something about like believing in climate change, and that's going to piss off people on the right, but then you can be anti-EV mandates and you're going to piss off someone on the left.
Yeah.
And so you're constantly pissing people off. So you're constantly thinking about, should I say this? Should I not?
I don't think like that anymore.
No, but I'm sure even when you don't think like that, you're still knowing that whatever you say is going to lose you followers.
Yep.
It's going to.
It's kind of why I'm irrelevant. I mean, not irrelevant, but
no, you could have sold your soul to stick to one message.
Yeah.
And you would be, I mean, you're not irrelevant at all. You have a huge platform, but like you would have a much bigger platform. I would have a much bigger platform if we gave in to that.
Yeah.
Like, because with every 2 followers we get for something, or
I
2
lose
fans,
20.
or you just lose 1. But still, it's like these people are saying something crazy and they're getting massive amounts, and they're like, oh, this is working. I'm going to keep doing this.
I mean, we had Kat Timpf on here 2 days ago, and she wrote a book about this, and she's sitting in the same position and has a huge audience, which gives me hope. So,
but people try to cancel her all the time and say that she's like the liberal on Fox News. And then, of course, if she went to some conservative or some liberal thing, they'd be like, she's the far right whack job.
Yeah,
like
no.
there's no winning, which is why you've got to be.
You can't partake though.
Right.
Like this is what I was telling someone right before we walked in. I'm like, the only way to you just can't engage in this. I'm like, everyone's going to try and pin you down with guilt by association and who you've talked to in the past and who you have like loose affiliations with and whatever. And you just have to stay focused on your vision and focused on community and building community and interacting with people in real life and not dehumanizing your political opponents.
Totally.
I mean, Chloe Valdery talks about this all the time, and she's so brilliant on just, I think we all need to read more James Baldwin, It's like we just need more love in our life. And,
we do.
And light. And you bring that. And I'm very grateful that you came through.
Well,
and
thank you.
This was so fun in person.
So fun.
I'm glad we did it. You are welcome anytime you're in town. We'll do it again.
The check-in with Bridget and Cousin Maggie can now be found at Phetasy.com. It's been titled Another Round with Bridget Phetasy, and it's now in video.
This has been Walk-Ins Welcome with Bridget Phetasy. I'm Bridget Phetasy, and you're welcome. It's the dumbest line.